Good morning again, algebra students. We are slowly ticking to the end of the chapter. One thing that I just want to mention is there will be the video today, and then there will be a Zoom session, and also video posted for that on Wednesday. And I believe I may have another video that will be posted on Monday. One thing that I am going to do is I am going to finish out the chapter 10. I'm also probably going to do some segments of chapter 11 and 12. So if your parents want you, those are not necessarily lessons that we get to on a yearly basis. Periodically we've hit a couple of things, but then I've had parents ask, well, what about some of the other stuff? So since we have this benefit of video and the online segment, I will be posting some that if your parents want you to continue, or you're just curious as to what's coming up and maybe you want to get a little jump, there will be some videos there. I'm not going to test, but you can certainly use the chapter tests in the back of the book, and I'd be happy to send you those answers. So for today, we're going to be looking at 10.6, and that is on page 603. And this is where the factoring gets a little bit more difficult, and we're not just looking at a single number in front of the x squared. So normally we just have one, and that's pretty easy then to factor out. But with these, we're going to start adding in a number that's sitting in that A. Now, if you notice your book, in example number 1, it talks about, it gives you a little formula there that's supposed to help maybe make it a little bit easier for some of this factoring. It talks about using M and N and substitution of the quadratic numbers, and then using P and Q. I only think that that serves to confuse you more. And so I don't even make references to those. So that first piece in 10.6 all the way down to really through the first example, when it talks about M and N and P and Q, ignore that. I actually just make reference to the numbers. And if you want to have a substitutionary term, then use A, B, and C. That's what we've been using this whole time. So why add in a P and a Q and an M and an N? So we are going to begin with the first example. I'm just, when it talks about M and N and P and Q, just scratch it out or ignore it. And so we're going to be looking 2x squared plus 11x plus 5. Now, if you recall, last week when we worked on these, we were only factoring the C. We were looking for multiples of that would combine together to get up to the middle, and would also work here, but those were just x squared, and so we didn't have a 2 in front of it. Well, now we're adding this. And so before we get to that one, actually, let me do an example. If you didn't join us last week and you're sitting there going, I have no idea what they're doing, let me do an example. We're going to do x squared plus 7x plus 10. So ignore this guy right now. Ignore the one at the top. And what we are going to do, if you weren't with us last week, we are looking for factors of 10, multiples of 10, that will add up to 7. So what we do is we always pull this number out, and we put all of our multiples right here. And we start with 1. 1 times 10. Always start with 1. And then try 2. 2 times 5. You can try 3, 4, but those aren't going to work. These are our only choices. And now what we do is we are going to look to these to say, okay, what can add up to 7 or subtract? What can add or subtract? and reach 7? Well, if you know your math, you should be saying this one. 2 and 5, when they're separated out, can then add up here. So our next step, and I should have left myself a little space, and I did it, but one of our very first steps is to create 2 sets of parentheses. On a test, if you have no idea how to do anything further, at least do this. Then you're going to put the x and the x, and because I have 2 positives, that's also going to be positive. And now what I have to do is take this number and puzzle piece it into this. Probably doesn't matter where I put these, but it is going to matter when we start doing these. So remember, I stick my 2 and my 5 in. This is the factoring of the quadratic equation. And if you were with us last week, we went on to figure out how these help us, and I'll point that out again before the end of the video. So I had x plus 2 and x plus 5, and if I multiply all of that together using FOIL, it does indeed come to x squared plus 7x plus 10. If you don't know what we're doing here, I encourage you to go back to that video and to watch it and to brush up before we move on to this. If you're ready to move on, then we're going to move on with this next one and take a look. Everything is the same except we're just finding the multiples of one more number. So I'm going to draw my parentheses again. I've got both positives, so I can put that in. I also can put the x, but I do need to leave space for whatever's going to go in front of it, but I can put the x. Now I'm going to find my multiples of 5, and I only have 1, so that's going to make that pretty easy. But I've got to figure out my multiples of 2, and those are also pretty easy. 2 times 1. So now I've got to put this one, 1 and 5, in the ending positions. So I'm just going to stick it in there. And I've got to put this also in a place, but it's going to go in these blanks. The x blanks is where the multiples of this one are going to go. And I'm just going to throw it in there, 1 and 2. So this one's easy because we only have one choice. These go in the end. This is the C. And these are going to go in the A space by the X. Since I only have one, I just throw them in there. Now, they still may not multiply out correctly, but we're going to find out right now. So obviously these are going to come out. I'm going to get 2x squared, and I'm also going to get 5 right there. And then in the middle, I'm going to get it plus 2x. And then over here, I'm going to get plus 5x, which gives me 7x. Well, that's not what I'm looking for. So my numbers are in a wrong place. So I'm going to maybe switch the x numbers. Sometimes those are a little easier. That's usually what I start with. So I'm going to put the 2 here and the 1 here. And now when I multiply, let's see what I get. I'm going to get 2x times 5, that's going to be 10x, and 1x times 1, and that's going to be x. That indeed will bring me to the 11x that we find right there. So you have a little bit more jigsaw puzzling to do, because you have another number now that's going to play into all of this. And so let's try another example. I'm actually going to work the checkpoints. And so you can begin to look at those. I would like for you to write out checkpoint 1. And I would like you to put your parentheses. And I would like for you to begin by figuring out the multiples of 3 and the multiples of 2. And then we're going to put all of that together to see if we can figure out the factoring. All right, so we have 2x squared, and this is, again, page 603. 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. And again, I'm going to put my x, but I'm going to have a blank in front of it. And I've got all positives, so plus and plus. I should see this on a test. Even if you don't know how to go any further, I should see that. You would get a point for that. Now, I have got, and so you're looking at both ends numbers. That's what you have to factor out. So 3 is the one, and that's going to go in C position. And then 2 is going to go in A position. And all I've got here is 3 times 1, just like I had in the previous one. So I don't have too much to worry about in 2 times 1. But I do have to jigsaw puzzle them. It's called algebra puzzling. It's my little name. You have to figure out where they go. And if you put them in, just like a jigsaw puzzle, if you put it in and it doesn't fit, then you have to put it someplace else. That is all you're doing here. If you plug these numbers in, they don't fit and they don't multiply back to this, then you've got to switch them around. So with the first one, if you want to start with the x, this is what goes by x, maybe we'll put 2 and 1. This one, let's put 3 and 1. All right. Then we've got to do our multiplication. Well, we know that the first one's going to work out, and we know that the last one's going to work out. So now I'm going to do, if you think about FOIL, we did the first, outer limits plus 2x, inner plus 3x. And what I get here is 5x. Well, my jigsaw puzzle, I just tried to jam a piece into my puzzle. It didn't work. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to switch just one set. Don't try to switch both of them. You can end up with the same problem. Switch one set. So I'm going to switch this one. I'm going to put the 1 here and the 3 here. Now when I do my outer limits, I'm going to get 6x plus 1x. And voila, I get 7x in the middle. Now as you get more proficient at these and you begin pulling out your different multiples and you're trying to figure, you are going to already see, hey, I need 2 times 3 to even get me close. And so sometimes, start looking ahead a little bit. All right, let's try another one. We're going to do the second checkpoint. I'd like for you to be writing these on your paper so that you can actually do the steps, step by step, so that when we get to more difficult ones, you have something in front of you to do. Actually, we're going to skip that one. I want to get to using some negative numbers. So go over to example number 3. They're using those funny things again, M and N and P and Q. Just ignore those. You know what we're doing. So we're going to do 6x squared minus 19x plus 15. Very first thing after standard form, done that, is the parentheses. That's got to go in. We're going to have an x, but we have a blank in front of it. And we can look at our signs and we see that there's a negative. So we know that we're going to have at least one negative, but because I'm ending up with a positive right here, remember negative times negative, positive times positive equals 15. And so because I have that positive there, I'm going to make an early assumption that both of these are negative. That's positive. I don't know how else it would get to positive except a negative and a negative, and I've got the negative there. So early assumption, you can leave it blank. You can put something in, but you've got to start looking ahead and making some assumptions. All right, I'm going to start with my 15. I've always started with the C, so I'm going to put it here. I'm going to figure out all my multiples. 1 times 15, 2 won't work, 3 times 5, and that's all. Then I'm going to come over here with my 6, and I'm going to have 1 times 6, 2 times 3, and that's going to be it there. Now, we've got three things to consider. First, we've got these negatives that popped in all of a sudden that we didn't have before. And now I've got two choices here. And these are the numbers that I have to fill in the blanks. So, I need to start making some choices. And I have to get to 19, a negative 19. Now that's a pretty high number. And I need a big jump. Like if you are going to jump halfway across the pool this summer, when you're going off the diving board, you've got to get a big running start and you've got to make a big leap. Well, I need a big leap for the middle. I need a big number for the middle. And a big number that I'm seeing over here is 15. So I'm going to make an assumption that I'm going to need that 15 to get me to 19. I don't know for sure, but it's kind of how my brain is working. So I am going to put that 1 in 15. And this, I'm just showing you how I sort through these. If you have looked through, you're going to see that this is not correct. So if you look at the example, you're going to see it's not correct. I'm showing you my thinking and how I jigsaw puzzle it. So I automatically go to, oh, I'm probably going to need that 15. And then I'm going to go down here. I'm going to look at these, and I know that maybe 2 and 3 are going to get me there. I'm going to put the 2 here and the 3 here. I don't know what's going to happen. But as I start multiplying it out, I realize, oh my goodness, this is going to be 30x. That's not what I need. And this isn't going to help it. It's going to be a negative 30x, negative 33. So that's certainly not going to help anything. So I can look at that one pretty immediately and figure out that I've got some errors. And so immediately, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out and this out. So my assumption was incorrect. I don't need that 15 to help me get to the 19. But let's try some other things. All right, so I've put the 2 and the 3 in. Now I'm going to have to do the 3 and the 5. That's all that's left. That's not going to work. I'm going to cross that one out. And I'm going to put my 3 and my 5. And now I'm going to multiply again just to kind of see where I am. So 2 times 3 is going to be the 6x squared. Negative 3 times negative 5 is going to be the 15. Those two are correct. So my outer limits is going to be negative 10x. My inner is going to be minus 9x. And look at that. It indeed comes out to the negative 19 in the middle. So sometimes your assumptions might be, oh, I got to get that 15 in there. I need a big number. But you may not. You may have enough to work with in the middle to get you to those larger numbers. All right, I want you to try one of these. And it may totally stump you, but I'm going to just have you do number 4 of the checkpoints on 604. So page 604, number 4. And you're going to work that for a second. And then I'm going to work it with you, and then we're going to do another one with these negative numbers in them. So hit pause and work on that, and then come back. So we have 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. Very first step after standard form is the parentheses. The only piece we've added is that there's a blank in front of the x and a blank in front of the x. I've got 2 positives, so I can put that in. You should be able to do this in your sleep. Remember, parentheses, blank in front of the x. I've got 2 positives, I can put positives in. And then we figure out our multiples. Well, I've got 2 in both places. And I know that my only multiple is 1 times 2. So I'm going to end up using that in both places. So I'll go ahead and put the 2 in the 1 Now, if I'm thinking, if I'm using my logical brain, I know that I got to get to 5. I need another 2 to bump up against this to get me to at least 4. So that means if I put the 2 here, it doesn't ever interact with that one. I need the 2 to be way out here. Because remember, outer limits, those 2 have to interact to get me to 4. And then the 1 is going to go here. So again, I just took my 1 and my 2 and I start playing with where they should go. And so I think I have this correct. So 2x squared plus outer limits 4x, inner plus 1x, and then plus 2 out here. And this adds up to that. Those 2 inner pieces, the O and the I, are what you are looking to join together for this. All right, one more negative with negative in it, and then you will have to try and just play with these and to do practice. If you are really still stuck, this might be the week for a Zoom session. We will review on Wednesday, so when we do the Zoom on Wednesday, we'll be reviewing this a little bit before we move on to the next thing, so you will get a little more practice with that. For the homework on Monday and Tuesday, questions that you are not sure how to work out, circle them, send them to me and say, hey, can we do this one as a homework problem? For right now, though, I want us to take a look at number 5 on the checkpoints, and I have 5x squared minus 7x plus 2. Standard form, parentheses, a blank, an x, a blank, an x. I've got negative and positive, so I am pretty sure I'm going to end up with 2 negatives because I've got that positive here. If I had a negative out here, then I'm probably looking at a positive somewhere. But I probably have 2 negatives. Anytime I have a positive there, I'm not going to say forever and for always, but it's probably you're going to need 2 negatives to get that. Whenever I say always, that somebody comes back and finds, I don't know, some example somewhere, so I've stopped saying that. All right, I have 2. I'm going to look at my 2. That's my C. And the only thing I've got in here is 1 times 2. Same with the 5. I only have 1 multiple. So I know those numbers are going to fill in those 4 blanks. I have 4 blanks, 4 numbers. They've got to go in there. I should at least see you sticking numbers in. Even if they come out desperately wrong, I should still see you sticking numbers in. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to go ahead and put the 5 and the 1 there. It's just neat and tidy. But it's the 2 and the 1 that I probably want to position. And I may, since I have a little bit bigger number there, I may want to have the 10 and the 5 interact, or the 2 and the 5 to get to a 10. And then the only, let me see what else I have, just the 1 here. And so I'm going to end up with 5x squared minus 10x minus x. Whoops. See, my thinking isn't always very good. So I'm just going to switch them now. And that's the easiest thing to do, just to switch one side. And now I'm going to end up with 5x squared, outer minus 5x, inner minus 2x, plus 2 because of the 2 negatives there. And I do get negative 5x and negative 2x adds up to the 7. So there's some logical thinking going on here. There's experimenting with numbers and playing around like with a puzzle. So I encourage you to play around with it. Send me questions that you're not able to figure out on your homework. And on Wednesday for our Zoom session, we will go over this. If you're not able to make the Zoom session on Wednesday, there will be a video posted for that material, but it probably won't go up until Wednesday afternoon, unless I get to it tomorrow night. So have fun. I like doing these kind of things. It's kind of fun trying to figure it out. and let me know where you have problems. And I will see you at the Zoom session.